Getting ready. Oh my gosh. Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang, a little unprepared, in California today with morsels of a thought number 1419. I am preparing myself in the morning. This is early in the morning for me, so please forgive me. I am trying to make sure that I don't knock everything over and put all this good work to waste. Whoa, don't fall over. Goodness gracious. I have a very, very sore leg. Very sore. And, okay. Today we're going to talk about compassion in the Book of Virtues, compiled by William J. Bennett. I'm going to start on page 105, which is the start of that entire section, and I'm planning to read to page 117. Let me see if I put a bookmark in here. No, I did not. Gee whiz. Okay, so kindness to animals starts at compassion. Just as courage takes its stand by others in challenging situations, so compassion takes its stand with others in their distress. Compassion is a virtue that takes seriously the reality of other persons, their inner lives. I don't know if I see the book on the screen. Do I see the book on the screen? I think I do. Okay. Sorry. Compassion is a virtue that takes seriously the reality of other persons, their inner lives, their emotions, as well as their external circumstances. It is an active disposition toward fellowship and sharing, toward supportive companionship in distress or in woe. The seeds of compassion are sown in our very nature as human beings. There is some benevolence, however small, infused into our bosom, some spark of friendship for humankind, some particle of the dove kneaded into our frame, along with the elements of the wolf and serpent, as David Hume once put it. His contemporary Jean-Jacques Rousseau agreed. Compassion is a natural feeling which, by moderating the violence of love of self in each individual, contributes to the preservation of the whole species. It is this compassion that hurries us without reflection to the relief of those who are in distress. Happily, this 18th century view is in fashion once again. It is our 20th century understanding that human infants do not distinguish between their own distress and that of others. One baby's cries in the nursery are frequently picked up by the rest, and together they form a natural choral symphony of sympathetic woe. Compassion seeks to retain our hold on this very early awareness that we are all in the same boat, that but for the grace of God, there go I. Compassion thus comes close to the very heart of moral awareness, to seeing in one's neighbor another self. The American philosopher Josiah Royce gave memorable expression to this insight more than 100 years ago. What then is thy neighbor? He asks in his quaint but compelling way, and the answer he gives in part is that one's neighbor is a mass of states, of experiences, thoughts, and desires, just as real as thou art. Does thou believe this? Art thou sure what it means? This is for thee the turning point of thy whole conduct towards him. How does one cultivate a compassionate nature in children? Helpful stories and maxims abound. And fortunately, in this case, compassion is as close to a natural disposition as any of the virtues. The main task, though this can be really formidable, is to see that neither animosity nor prejudice stunts its natural growth. The divine isms are major obstacles here: racism, sexism, chauvinism, and the rest. And very important in this case, as in so much of the rest of moral upbringing, is the power of consistent example. Treat no one with callous disregard. Children know when they are being taken seriously by others, and they imitate what they see. Therein lies both our hope and our peril. Kindness to animals. Compassion may be first learned through kindness to all creatures, great and small. Little children never give pain to things that feel and live. Let the gentle robin come for the crumbs you save at home. As his meat you throw along, he'll repay you with a song. Never hurt the timid hare, peeping from her green grass lair. Let her come and sport and play on the lawn at close of day. The little lark goes soaring high to the bright windows of the sky, singing as if 'twere always spring, and fluttering on an untired wing. Oh, let him sing his happy song, nor do these gentle creatures wrong. The Lion and the Mouse by Aesop. Here is one of the oldest and best loved stories of kindness, paid and repaid. From it, we learn that compassion lies within the power of both the mighty and the meek. Kindness is not a feeble virtue. One day, a great lion lay asleep in the sunshine. A little mouse ran across his paw and wakened him. The great lion was just going to eat him up when the little mouse cried, "Oh, please let me go. Sir, someday I may help you." The lion laughed at the thought that the little mouse could be of any use to him, but he was a good-natured lion, and he set the mouse free. Not long after, the lion was caught in a net. He tugged and pulled with all his might, but the ropes were too strong. Then he roared loudly. The little mouse heard him and ran to the spot. "Be still, dear lion, I will set you free. I will gnaw the ropes." With his sharp little teeth, the mouse cut the ropes, and the lion came out of the net. "You laughed at me once," said the mouse. "You thought I was too little to do you a good turn. But see, you owe your life to a poor little mouse." Little Sunshine. Retold by Etta Austin Blaisdell and Mary Frances Blaisdell, Blaisdell. Bestowing compassion is like offering most other gifts. Often it's the thought that counts. Once there was a little girl named Elsa. She had a very old grandmother with white hair and wrinkles all over her face. Elsa's father had a large house that stood on a hill. Each day the sun peeped in at the south windows. It made everything look bright and beautiful. The grandmother lived on the north side of the house. The sun never came up to her room. One day Elsa said to her father, "Why doesn't the sun peep into Grandma's room? I know she would like to have him." "The sun cannot look in the north windows," said her father. "Then let us turn the house around, Papa." "It is much too large for that," said her father. "Will Grandma never have any sunshine in her room?" asked Elsa. "Of course not, my child, unless you can carry some to her." After that, Elsa tried and tried to think how she could carry the sunshine to her grandmother. When she played in the fields, she saw the grass and the flowers nodding their heads. The birds sang sweetly as they flew from tree to tree. Everything seemed to say, "We love the sun, we love the bright warm sun." Grandma would love it too, thought the child. I must take some to her. When she was in the garden one morning, she felt the sun's warm rays in her golden hair. Then she sat down and saw them in her lap. I will take them in my dress, she thought, and carry them to Grandma's room. So she jumped up and ran into the house. Look, Grandma, look, I have some sunshine for you, she cried, and she opened her dress, but there was not a ray to be seen. It peeps out of your eyes, my child, said her grandmother, and it shines in your sunny golden hair. I do not need the sun when I have you with me. Elsa did not understand how the sun could peep out of her eyes, but she was glad to make her dear grandmother happy. Every morning she played in the garden. Then she ran to her grandmother's room to carry the sunshine in her eyes and hair. Here's a child's prayer by M. Bentham Edwards. God, make my life a little light within the world to glow, a tiny flame that burneth bright wherever I may go. God, make my life a little flower that giveth joy to all, content to bloom in native bower, although its place be small. God, make my life a little song that comforteth the sad, that helpeth others to be strong, and makes the singer glad. God, make my life a little staff, whereon the weak may rest, that so what health and strength I have may serve my neighbors best. That's a child's prayer. Wow. Diamonds and Toads, retold by Charles Perrault, Perrault. In this story, we learn the old lesson that to speak kindly does not hurt the tongue. To speak with anger and disagreeableness, however, may bring unhappiness. Once upon a time, there was a woman who had 2 daughters. The elder daughter was very much like her mother in face and manner. They were both so disagreeable and so proud that there was no living with them. The younger daughter was like her father, for she was good and sweet-tempered and very beautiful. As people naturally love their own likeness, the mother was very fond of her elder daughter and at the same time had a great dislike for the younger. She made her eat in the kitchen and work all the time. Among other things, the poor child was obliged to go twice a day to draw a pitcher full of water from the spring in the woods 2 miles from the house. One day when she reached the spring, a poor woman came up to her and begged for a drink. Oh, yes, with all my heart, ma'am, said this pretty little girl. And she took some clear, cool water from the spring and held up the pitcher so that the woman might drink easily. When she had finished, the woman said, You are so very pretty, my dear, so good and kind, that I cannot help giving you a gift. Now this was a fairy who had taken the form of a poor country woman to see how this pretty girl would treat her. I will give you for a gift, continued the fairy, that at every word you speak, either a flower or a jewel shall come out of your mouth. When the girl reached home, her mother scolded her for staying so long at the spring. I beg your pardon, Mamma, said the poor girl, for not making more haste. And as she spoke, there came out of her mouth 2 roses, 2 pearls, and 2 large diamonds. What is it I see there? Said her mother, very much surprised. I think I see pearls and diamonds come out of the girl's mouth. How does this happen, my child? How does this happen? This was the first time she had ever called her my child, or spoken kindly to her. The poor child told her mother all that had happened at the spring and of the old woman's promise. All the time, jewels and flowers fell from her lips. This is delightful, cried the mother. I must send my dearest child to the spring. Come, Fanny, see what comes of your sister's mouth when she speaks. Would you not be glad, my dear, to have the same gift given to you? All you will have to do is take the pitcher to the spring in the wood. When a poor woman asks you for a drink, give it to her. It would be a fine thing for me to do, said the selfish girl. I will not go draw water. I will not go to draw water. The child can give me her jewels. She does not need them. Yes, you shall, said the mother, and you shall go to this minute. And you shall go this minute. As at last the older daughter went, grumbling and scolding all the way, and taking with her the best silver pitcher in the house. She had no sooner reached the spring than she saw a beautiful lady coming out of the wood, who came up to her and asked her for a drink. This was, you must know, the same fairy who had met her sister, but who had now taken the form of a princess. I did not come out here to serve you with water, said the proud, selfish maid. Do you think I brought this silver pitcher so far just to give you a drink? You can draw water from the spring as well as I. You are not very polite, said the fairy. Since you are so rude and so unkind, I give you for a gift that at every word you speak, toads and serpents shall come out of your mouth. As soon as the mother saw her daughter coming, she cried out, Well, my dear child, did you see the good fairy? Yes, mother, answered the proud girl, and as she spoke, 2 serpents and 2 toads fell from her mouth. What is this I see? Cried the mother. What have you done? The girl tried to answer, but at every word, toads and serpents came from her lips. And so it was forever after. Jewels and flowers fell from the lips of the younger daughter, who was so good and kind, but the elder daughter could not speak without a shower of serpents and toads. Wow. So here's our last story. Old Mr. Rabbit's Thanksgiving Dinner by Carolyn Sherwin Bailey. It is a discovery we make again and again, as if by accident each time. It gives us greater satisfaction to be helpful than helped. For a child, this discovery, when made the first time, is one of the important lessons that takes one beyond the confines of the self. Old Man Rabbit sat at the door of his little house, eating a nice, ripe, juicy turnip. It was a cold, frosty day, but Old Man Rabbit was all wrapped up, round and round, with yards and yards of his best red wool muffler, so he didn't care if the wind whistled through his whiskers and blew his ears up straight. Old Man Rabbit had been exercising too, and that was another reason why he was so nice and warm. Early in the morning he had started off up lippity-clippity down the little path that lay in front of his house and led to Farmer Dwyer's corn patch. The patch was all covered with shiny red leaves. Old Man Rabbit scuffled through them, and he carried a great big bag over his back. In the corn patch he found 2 or 3 fat red ears of corn that Farmer Dwyer had missed, so he dropped them into his bag. A little farther along he found some purple turnips and some yellow carrots and quite a few russet apples that Farmer Dwyer had arranged in little piles in the orchard. Old Man Rabbit went in the barn, squeezing under the big front door by making himself very flat, and he filled all the chinks in his bag with potatoes, and he took a couple of eggs in his paws, for he thought he might want to stir up a little pudding for himself before the day was over. Then Old Man Rabbit started off home again down the little brown path, his mouth watering every time his bag bumped against his back, and not meeting anyone on the way because it was so very, very early in the morning. When he came to the little house, he emptied his bag and arranged all his harvest in piles in his front room. the corn in one pile, the carrots in one pile, the turnips in another pile, and the apples and potatoes in the last pile. He beat up his eggs and stirred some flour with them and filled it full of currants to make a pudding. And when he had put his pudding in a bag and set it boiling on the stove, he went outside to sit a while and eat a turnip, thinking all the time what a mighty fine old rabbit he was, and so clever too. Well, while Old Man Rabbit was sitting there in front of his little house, wrapped up in his red muffler, munching his turnip, munching the turnip, he heard a little noise in the leaves. It was Billy Chipmunk traveling home to the stone wall where he lived. He was hurrying and blowing on his paws to keep them warm. "Good morning, Billy Chipmunk," said Old Man Rabbit. "Why are you running so fast?" "Because I am cold and I am hungry," answered Billy Chipmunk. "It's going to be a hard winter, a very hard winter. No apples left. I've been looking all morning for an apple and I couldn't find one." And with that, Billy Chipmunk went chattering by, his fur standing straight out in the wind. No sooner had he passed that than Old Man Rabbit saw Molly Mouse creeping along the little brown path, her long gray tail rustling the red leaves as she went. "Good morning, Molly Mouse," said Old Man Rabbit. "Good morning," answered Molly Mouse in a weak little voice. "You look a little unhappy," said Old Man Rabbit, taking another bite of his turnip. "I have been looking for an ear of corn," said Molly Mouse in a sad little chirping voice, "but the corn has all been harvested. It's going to be a very hard winter, a very hard winter." And Molly Mouse trotted out of sight. Pretty soon Old Man Rabbit heard somebody else coming along by his house. This time it was Tommy Chickadee hopping by and making a great to-do, chattering and scolding as he came. "Good morning, Tommy Chickadee," said Old Man Rabbit. But Tommy Chickadee was too much put out about something to remember his manners. He just chirped and scolded because he was cold and he couldn't find a single crumb or a berry or anything at all to eat. Then he flew away, his feathers puffed out with the cold until he looked like a round ball, and all the way he chattered and scolded more and more. Old Man Rabbit finished his turnip, eating every single bit of it, even to the leaves. Then he went in his house to poke the fire in his stove and to see how the pudding was cooking. It was doing very well indeed, bumping against the pot as it bubbled and boiled and smelling very fine indeed. Old Man Rabbit looked around his house at the corn and the carrots and the turnips and the apples and the potatoes, and then he had an idea. It was a very funny idea, different from any other idea Old Man Rabbit had ever had before in all his life. It made him scratch his head with his left hind foot and think and wonder, but it pleased him too. It was such a very funny idea. First he took off his muffler, then he put on his gingham apron, then he took his best red tablecloth from the drawer and put it on his table, and then he set the table with his gold-banded china dinner set. By the time he had done all this, the pudding was boiled, so he lifted it all sweet and steaming from the kettle and set it in the middle of the table. Around the pudding, Old Man Rabbit piled heaps and heaps of corn and carrots and turnips and apples and potatoes, and then he took down his dinner bell that was all rusty because Old Man Rabbit had very seldom rung it before, and he stood in his front door and rang it very hard, calling in a loud voice, "Dinner's ready! Come to dinner, Billy Chipmunk and Molly Mouse and Tommy Chickadee." They all came, and they brought their friends with them. Tommy Chickadee brought Rusty Robin, who had a broken wing and had not been able to fly south for the winter. Billy Chipmunk brought Chatter Chee, a lame squirrel whom he had invited to share his hole for a few months, and Molly Mouse brought a young gentleman field mouse who was very distinguished looking because of his long whiskers. When they all tumbled into Old Man Rabbit's house and saw the table with the pudding in the center, they forgot their manners and began eating as fast as they could, every one of them. It kept Old Man Rabbit very busy waiting on them. He gave all the currants from the pudding to Tommy Chickadee and Rusty Robin. He selected juicy turnips for Molly Mouse and her friend, and the largest harvest apples for Billy Chipmunk. Old Man Rabbit was so busy that he didn't have any time to eat a bite of dinner himself, but he didn't mind that, not one single bit. It made him feel so warm and full inside just to see the others eating. When the dinner was over and not one single crumb was left on the table, Tommy Chickadee hopped on the back of his chair and chirped, "Three cheers for Old Man Rabbit's Thanksgiving dinner!" "Hurrah! Hurrah!" they all twittered and chirped and chattered, and Old Man Rabbit was so surprised that he didn't get over it for a week. You see, he had really given a Thanksgiving dinner without knowing that it really and truly was Thanksgiving Day. What do you know? Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. So we will see you tomorrow. Okay? Old Kinderrick. Bye.